Howdy, howdy. Looks like we're live. I'm going to take care of all of the technical details that we've got here flying in our face and trying to stay grounded, stay present for you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back, and I'm glad that you're joining me here live if you're here with us. Today I've got my name is Amira Hall, and I have been assisting people turning their pain into their power, finding their superpowers and coming online, so to speak, to create abundance and all their heart's desires. I've been doing that now for over 25 years. My own journey started out with some pain. Well, I guess the journey to wake up was triggered by pain. When my dad died, then I was diagnosed with a life-threatening illness. And I was going through a divorce. It was over 30 years ago. And I got myself back on the track of, building a successful career and making some good money, and very proud to be a type A personality, and, graduating magna cum laude and being the top with a near-death experience. So I think that for many of us, we are can be on a path and doing excellent until some life-threatening or some adverse events occur, and it requires us to take a pivot. And that's one of the big reasons that I've been so excited to have Eric with me today, because Eric has a story to share about resilience and finding his purpose and finding passion in his own work and life, and helping others come to find their own life passions and purpose. Life began on a conventional career path, and he'll share all about that. And then he began pivoting, and he says again and again. And for some of you, this pivot idea is nothing new. But when he found his first business, he realized there's, it's one thing setting up a business, but there's setbacks. And then there's dealing with a life-threatening illness. And so we have a lot in common. But he said he never lost sight of what his bigger purpose was, and that was to help people find their passion. So today he works to inspire and support people through coaching systems and writing, and found his purpose and passion helping others and coming into alignment. So welcome, Eric. Thank you so much for joining me here.
Hi, Amira. It's so nice to be here and see your
Thank you.
smiling face, and just to hear you're just so positive. I appreciate being in your space.
Well, thank you. I so appreciate that, because God knows I'm not always, this effervescent, and the real truth is I don't show that part of myself to too many people. I'm pretty select and careful on where I tread, because over the years, and maybe this has happened for you, maybe not, but I was always so sensitive that I learned that I had to keep a lot of my feelings to myself, because people didn't, the community, perhaps it was in the corporate world, and even my own family, they couldn't support that, and maybe they couldn't accept it within me, because I was always strong and positive. And then when I crashed, I didn't really have the people that could help build me up. And I think that's important, right? When we come to a crisis, having that person that can see something magnificent in us and support us to sort of maneuver through the clouds and the fog to find that path. So tell me, how did this all come into fruition for you? What was your big life revealing moment?
Well, I'll come to that in a moment, but there's a couple things that came to mind as you were speaking. The first is you talked about being effervescent and like what you show to the public versus privately. And there's this kind of Zen question, do you smile because you're happy, or are you happy because you smile? And sometimes just that beingness of, like that commitment to being. So for me, life is like, there's sort of like, I'm either like in survival and trying to just hang in there and just keep from evaporating, or I'm in this conversation of what's possible and how can I make it better and all that sort of thing. And one of the flags that I found for myself is that if like I know that things aren't working for me if I'm in a conversation in my own mind about surviving. And so I can have this commitment to create a context of possibility, like to have that be the conversation that I not only have with others, but in my own mind. And, you know, there's a question about vulnerability. And do you, I know for myself that sometimes I'm just in this mindset where I can't think my way out of it. And there's a lot of ways. So then, you know, I can engage in a lot of different things, you know, outside of myself. But the most powerful thing is when I'm in that situation is to get a hold of someone I know who loves me and who thinks of me far greater than I do myself.
Mhm.
And I'll just start sharing with them what that monologue is. And quite frankly, you know, the power of being in communication with somebody like that is that junk just can't stand the light of day. They'll go, "What are you talking about?" And, you know, and point to, like, it's like the
Snap out of
mist's
it.
clear, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
because I know that I can't just do it myself. And if I know that also, if I kind of keep trying to tough it out, like, and just keep putting a brave face out there and all that, and to the point where I kind of break, that's one mode. But a more powerful mode for me is that when I get the inkling that that's going on, when I'm in an argument with, this is the other flag, when I'm in
With
argument
yourself?
with, when I'm arguing in an argument with reality,
Oh, okay.
like what's so right this very moment, and
Uh-huh.
like this is not the place I'm supposed to be, or it shouldn't be that way, you know, all that. So those two flags, like that I'm either thinking like as a survivalist, or that I'm arguing with the reality of what's really just right there. Those are two flags for me. It's like, dude, you need to shift. And so, you know, whatever resources that I can bring to bear, sometimes I have my own kind of tools and systems, and sometimes get in conversation with others.
Right.
But the idea is to like be sensitive to those flags early rather than letting it kind of keep building, because then there's like this big crescendo kind of a crash versus like little small bumpy kind of things that are just more like when I'm out in the world, they're just not such a dramatic boom where people are like, whoa, where did that come from?
Right.
It's like,
So
I know this is going on, so I'll report, you know?
yeah, I find it fascinating how you're processing this versus how I process, because I'm more of a feeling person. I've
Mhm.
always been very, you know, empathic and take things in energetically. And because I'm so sensitive, sometimes I start reacting to environmental stimulus or, you know, circumstances, situations that aren't even me. And so I think
Totally understand.
the most important thing, I guess, is stop. What is that? Stop, drop, and roll. You know,
Yeah,
it's like catch yourself in the minute when it's all sparking and
yeah.
where you're going to have a flare out. You know, and
Mhm.
know thyself. But I really want to come back to what your question was. You know, do I say that again? Do you smile because you're happy on the inside?
Do you
And
smile because you're happy, or are
right.
you happy because you smile?
And I think there's like both parts matter.
Yeah,
And
I
the trigger.
totally agree.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like being present to when you're going into that mode of I'm not feeling the smile, and like, okay, great. So, and then if you have a toolkit that you can bring to bear, then you can be like, great, I know how to shift this so I'm more in a context of what's possible,
Yeah. Yeah.
and being responsible for myself in those little micro moments. You
Yeah.
can kind of picture like this mental trend, right? And you're kind of going along like this, and you can feel it. It's like, uh-oh, 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 boom. Or you can be like this and go, whoa, whoa, wait a minute. How
Right.
can I kind of, you know, and then this is survival, and this is possibility.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And so like these just little micro conversations.
Yeah. No, I love it.
And I'll say, by the way, another thing that I do that I sometimes, well, I just do it because I found that it's better. It took me a long time to learn this. I used to be that I had this, I still do, but I have this separation between emotions and thinking,
Mhm.
you know, and I would be like, just have this cap on those feelings. I couldn't kind of deal with them.
Well,
But what I've taken now is that I try to report more about feelings that are coming up. And for example, when I'm coaching somebody in particular, and I'll be talking with them and they'll be saying stuff and I'll be listening, and like this sort of belief or story or like about what they're saying and how it is for them occurs in my mind. And what I found is super effective there is to just say, I got to stop you for just a second, because I'm just going to tell you what I'm making up here, and I'm going to tell you what it is, and you tell me whether there's anything to it or whether I'm just making stuff up. And then I'll
so
say,
you're
here's
reflecting it
what I'm
back.
thinking.
You're reflecting back to them.
But I'm
what you're
reflecting
hearing.
back that kind of opinion that that's going on, so that and then they can tell me like, whoa, you nailed it, or
Yeah.
no,
You're way off.
that's nothing like that. It's like, great,
Okay.
now I can hear you again, and we continue.
Right.
Because I just know that, and that's kind of part of that getting into dialogue versus being in your own head kind of a thing.
Right.
So,
So how
but
did
that,
this
I use that to process emotions and opinions and stuff like that,
Okay.
among other things.
Fascinating. So you're using your intellect and your experience, and you're mirroring back to them what you're hearing.
Yeah, but I'm also using my emotional cues. Like,
Okay.
one of the things that I talk to people about is, what do you want for your all the relationships and roles and areas of your life, and what do you want to create versus like, here's how it is now, like that. And
I love it. That's where I'm operating. Let's talk about that and what we want to create.
Yes.
How did you get to this point?
Wow. So
You've got to rewind the tape.
I had a certain answer for you, but then I'm just reevaluating on the fly.
Well, that's fine. That's cool.
Some years ago, I was married, and my ex said, I need to talk. We had a couple kids. We tried for a third and had a couple of miscarriages. It was kind of a sad situation. And she came to me and she said, I really need to, talk with somebody. And so she got a psychologist and she started working with them. And about 6 months later, she told me, you should get somebody to talk with too. And so I started working with this person. And then she laid the bomb on me that she'd been having an affair with somebody from the time that my kids were little. And well, I've never really said this, and I don't know, I haven't told my kids this. So anyway, but it was like boom, and it made me really kind of shift and start to reevaluate things. And then, we got back on track and things were good, and then things changed, and she ended up electing to divorce me. And there's a whole story behind that, but it made me, I was living, I started doing some self-development work where I realized that I was living my life like, this is not the life I'm supposed to be living. I'm supposed to be over there. Mm-hmm. And it was like a super powerful way, like, of me resisting my current life. And when I had been doing a Zen breathing practice where I would be like, breathe in, breathe out, like count, like pay attention to your breaths. And it was sort of the count to 10 and start again. Mm-hmm. And just don't worry about how many tens you do, but just being present to your breath. And if you get distracted, then there's this practice called training the puppy, where if you're training a puppy, you don't like, if they stray off, you don't like slam them or, like you just gently bring them back. And so and at least for myself, it's easy to be really harsh with myself.
Mhm.
If I'm not doing what I said, but train the puppy is just gently bring yourself back to being present. So the reason I say that is because when I was doing the self-development, realizing that I was resisting the life I was in, so I was supposed to be over there, I took on a practice of simply being present in every moment and paying attention. And the most amazing thing that started to happen, possibilities just started to pop up all around me that were there all the time, but I never saw them. It's sort of like if you decide you're going to buy a car and you say, you know what, I'm going to get a Mazda Miata, and all of a sudden you're looking around and there's Miatas all over the place. You're like, where did they come from? It's only because and in that same kind of mechanism, I started to become present to my own life. And, through the course of all that, I'd been doing work to try to get clearer about what I wanted and those sort of things, but it sharpened after that kind of process. And so as time went on, I had also been trying to figure out how to do a career change and some other things like that. And I developed a couple of systems to get clear about what I wanted and what was important, and another like one technique around that, all those roles and relationships, and another one, what I love to do and do well. You can kind of think of, there's a 2x2 matrix, love and hate, can and can't for things. And you want to be in that love can quadrant, and you're not going to be in that hate can't quadrant at all or very long. But you could find yourself, there's stuff that's in the can't but love space that's like, great, so I'll do training, personal and professional development, bring that over into the can place so that it's love can. But sometimes you find yourself in that can hate space, where it maybe not hate, but it's like there's other things I'd much rather be doing. And the question there is, what do you do? And so one thing you could be, well, I can learn to love it. Or you could say, great, so how can I shift things so that I'm in that love can quadrant? So I did, I developed those kind of techniques to kind of get focused on what was most important to me. And, started to, come up, I'm a systems and process and procedures kind of a guy.
So tell us about that. Tell us about what you were doing in the real world. I mean, not that this isn't the real world.
No, I understand. That's like the
corporate
theoretical
life.
concept.
Yeah. Tell us about so that we can understand how your brain works, how you're structured, because I do believe all of that created a framework for where you're at now.
That's true. And are you sure you really want to understand how my brain works?
Well, no, I don't.
I'm just laughing. I'm saying in a teasing sort of way.
Yeah. No, I can't even understand how mine works. But I think the life experience really shapes us. Mm-hmm. And I think it also helps us to redirect. I mean, It's like, okay, I've done that and that's not working, or that worked to a certain point and I was successful, So tell us about that. We want to know
So in terms of the love can piece, let's talk about that for a moment. Back from when I was a little kid, I was interested in having my own business. My dad was a research chemist and very successful, but he was also an immigrant. And when his mom died, he got this immigrant dream welled up in him, and he starting when I was in 4th grade, he designed, invented, and patented and built an amphibious motorhome, like 28 feet long, drive in the water, pull up the wheels. It's a boat.
That's so cool.
And when I was in early high school in the 70s, he wanted to start that as a business, and he was all ready, and the oil crisis hit, and he backed off because it used a lot of gas and it used petroleum products and the market was kind of low. so he backed off, and a couple years later, he made another run at it, and he was more prepared. And the second worst oil crisis hit, and so he dropped off. And ended up going to work for took over a business that my uncle had, and became successful with that. Took an early retirement, but I'd always had this idea of wanting to have my own business, but. I went the conventional route, as you'd mentioned, and, had corporate jobs. And so I was an intrapreneur. So how I solved that was being an intrapreneur within the companies that I worked for, like creating new products and services. And so I was in a technical role at like Bell Labs, kind of technical guy doing, defining the requirements for products and services. And I was pretty good at that. But I really wanted to be I got my MBA in the evenings along the way in new venture development. And I really wanted to get on the business side. So I used that technique that I told you about, where I went through and looked at everything that I'd done and figured out what I love to do and do well, and started taking on special projects to do that, and was able to develop enough of a resume to qualify me that I got an opportunity to become a product manager, which is like having your own like business within the company. Mm-hmm. And I really loved doing that. And I ended up going from there to shifting from where I went from Bell Labs to AT&T as a product manager in this hyper growth startup thing that it was like a pre-internet. It was super popular though, and developed a new service for that was just flying off the shelves. And I got an opportunity to move over to NCR, which AT&T had owned at the time. But the point there is that they had a business. They managed partnerships with a couple of big businesses. One of them was Cisco Systems, which sells network routers and stuff like that. And I took over their $250 million business and ran that for a number of years, and then ended up working for Cisco for a while, all the time, developing new products and services. And I guess the point there is, some people may think yawn, but for me, it was like, I loved it. That was so fulfilling to me. And it was all because I kept focusing. I knew what it was that I loved to do and do well. I had that kind of fundamental thing. But as time went on, and that series of events led me to my divorce, and I started thinking, whoa, what do I really want, like, for my roles and relationships? And I developed kind of through self-development work, I kind of distilled this kind of idea of how to go through a process, a system for myself to do that. And then I guess the bigger life-changing thing was, about 5 years into being divorced, I ended up finding I couldn't stand, and I wasn't able to, I couldn't walk, I couldn't stand, and something was wrong, and I was diagnosed with fractured ribs. But as it turns out, I went to another doctor who validated that and so forth. But finally, through a series of events, I ended up getting accurately diagnosed that I had a cancer called multiple myeloma. Wow. And I had a tumor in my spine, like in the 9th thoracic vertebrae, which is just a little bit up in the rib cage, that had been reduced to 30%, and it was compressing on my spinal cord. And I had to go through a whole series of things: bed rest, and I was wearing a clamshell brace so I could walk, and a stem cell transplant, back surgery, all kinds of things like that. It's very dramatic. But it was like this additional level of call to action.
And getting quiet and really listening to what was important to you, getting clear, right? I mean, I know I had a cosmic 2x4 hit me in the head too. And it's like, okay, it's like an opportunity to talk about pivot, right? Yeah. To really get clear about who we are and what's important and where we're going to go next.
Yes. And quite frankly, because I've been doing the self-development work, and I was lying in my hospital bed, and I put the word out to my friends about what's going on. And one of my dear friends who lived in Dallas got a hold of me and said, give me a call. And she was a 2-time breast cancer survivor, and I had coached her in the past about dealing with all of that.
Mhm.
And she got a hold of me and said, Eric, you're going to get through this. What's your life going to be about? You're going to get through this. What's your life going to be about? And I just knew, even in that moment, I said, I'm passionate about seeing other people live their passions. It lights me up. And that was like the crystallization of what's been my kind of my clearer vision of what my North Star is since then. And one thing and another, I ended up after the cancer, I ended up getting restructured out of my job back in 2008. I was an executive in the wrong place that the people got hit. But after trying to look for work for a little while, it was a horrible time to do that. I'd always wanted to start a business, and I got this opportunity to take at Rutgers. They called a double mini MBA in entrepreneurship. I developed a business plan about creating a business and life you love, and I just went for it, and I started my first business, and one thing led to another, and so I ended up where I am now. But I guess the key point there is that I learned through all of that the clearer I was about my North Star, the more effective I would be moment by moment in terms of making choices about where to spend my time, what to invest in, that focus, and being able to say, in strategy, you could say that it's not just what you do, but even more powerfully, it's being able to say clearly what you're not going to do. And so I'm constantly working on what my North Star is and getting clearer and clearer about it.
But don't you think there's a component of how you do it also?
I draw on I try to find the best resources I can to help myself. Sometimes it's like my own rules that I've worked out that make sense, and some from them, and trying to find somebody that's like ahead of me.
Right. I don't mean how
is
as in this. I mean in terms of the inside job.
Okay.
How we're approaching it, like finding your North Star, but it's not just going ahead with your intellect and by God making it happen. It's about coming into that Zen space and really coming into that full alignment and knowing that you're being guided, or you're following step-by-step process as you're feeling it. You're moving in a rhythm or a flow that is in alignment with yourself.
Yes.
That's kind of what I was alluding to in terms.
I got it. And well, one of the things that I use as guidance to the people I work with is that as you're coming up, there's this intellectual work of what are all the roles and areas and relationships in my life, and what do I want to create for them and stuff like that. And so that's like an intellectual kind of a thing, but it's helpful to have it written down, actually, in some sort of rudimentary way. But the other thing is, then I encourage people to take that and go out in the world, and you're your own tuning fork for things. And so as you're sort of like, well, I said this, but that's not really resonating, but this is, and you shift and adjust according to what your tuning fork guides you to. And that it's like, it's a little bit of a moving target, or an evolving target, I'll say. Like sometimes it's a matter of getting crisper and clearer about things, and sometimes there's a shift, and then you need to adjust. But that's all part of being able to consult your inner resources, intellectually, emotionally, physically, and whatever spiritual guidance that you follow. And just basically drawing on everything that you have as a way of that's like the greater tuning fork. The first part is like that emotional kind of thing, but having, you bring to bear all that stuff and just using it to constantly kind of check things out. Like everything you do, you could think of as this, like scientifically would be an experiment, like, okay, I'm here. and I want to move to this next thing. And so I have this hypothesis that if I do this and this and this, I'm going to get this result. And then you go and you try it, and it's like, well, woo, that worked, that was great. Or whoop, that did not come out at all the way I thought. And you kind of rethink, but you can kind of, so it's really a matter of like allowing yourself the latitude, like giving yourself not just the permission, but kind of the mandate to evolve and adjust over the course of time, according to all that feedback you're getting, both internally and from external sources, and then trying to find the best ways to go after the things that you conclude that makes sense, that you want to pursue, based on this kind of constant sort of on track, off track, on track, off track. Where's my North Star? You can kind of think of like having a map and a compass, right? The compass is where's my North Star, and the map is like where you are and where you think you're going to be going. I'm a master at creating like a whole plan to get me from
I
here
bet
to
you are.
eternity.
Yeah.
But it's a fool's game, because there's only a certain distance out you can see. Like there's your headlights only can let you see a certain distance, and it's so easy. Excuse me, it's so easy. And I've done this time and again. It's so easy to get out ahead of your headlights and be like working on things that are like way down the line, instead of taking care of what you need to do right in this moment. So
Being
like if you have a business, you want to make sure you know what you want for your whole life, and ideally have a business that takes advantage of what that sweet spot is, that what you love to do and do well, and you bring that to the world. And so, you can do a lot of work around that, but you also have to remember that you want to be making money every step along the way, like not just like have a 5-year plan and then in year 4 I'm going to start to turn a profit, kind of a thing. So so it's
to be
really a
grounded in
matter
the
of
present. To be grounded in the present and realize you've got to sort of make adjustments for where you want to go, but you still have to be right here and now and what you would have to have like a top 3 or 5 items or focal points, right? Where you're going to build your business to the most important issues at the moment.
Right. And so there's like that kind of longer term vision. So you have a longer term vision about what you want that all to look like, and your business is a component of that. It's like it serves that versus you serving it, and so from that you can distill like what I call your number one goal. Like what's that thing down like several years down the line that you want to get to, and then reel back and look very near term. Like think in terms of like what I want to do in the next 3 months, what I do in the next 4 months that's going to move me in that direction. And then what do I do this month, and what do I do this week, and what do I do today in order to do that? And so one of the things you want to, so with that, you can kind of manage what gets on your calendar day by day, moment by moment, that is aligned with where you want to go, versus the things that are distracting or putting off. Because one of the big things that people like, distractions is what like the number one thing.
Yeah. So how do you help somebody they're all over the place, right? And how do you guide your client into clearing off the distractions?
Well, I teach a course called Super Focused Entrepreneur Action Plan. Okay. and there we go through like 6 steps. We talk about what's your number one goal, and then what's the stepping stones to get you there, like those big milestones, and what the resources are that you have, and we talk about managing your calendar and those sort of things, and the technology to do that, and then how to keep track over time. But within that, the whole idea here is it's not this kind of fantasy of being able to stay focused in every moment about where you're going, but that we are designed to have distractions catch our attention. It's like it's an evolutionary survivalist thing, right? You know, primitively speaking, you're walking through the forest and you do want to notice the saber-toothed tiger or
Right.
you know, whatever,
Yeah,
right?
you definitely do.
So yeah, so you're designed to attend to distractions. And the trick though is, if you know that, it's not staying focused on where you're going in every moment, but having that skill of being able to constantly refocus more quickly and more effectively to bring yourself back. Sometimes you get knocked off by big things, like when I got hit by the cancer. That was like a multi-month, that was like a long thing.
Yeah.
But if you
That was
know
a bigger opportunity
you
to
can still bring
refocus.
yourself back, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's little things. So dealing with distractions is about, you know, there's
I don't
sort of,
know. Was that really a distraction or like a wake up call? I mean,
that depends. It
so,
depends on what on the nature of it. I mean,
but
sometimes it is a wake up call like that, like when you had your health crisis, when I had
yeah,
mine,
my dad died when we have a
right?
death in our life, or, you know, even the pandemic. I mean, that was a big wake up call for a lot of people, sort of
Right.
reevaluating their life and their relationships and their health, their relationship to their health, right? That was a
Yep.
big one. You know, what the biggest fear on the planet is that of dying.
Or public speaking.
Well, you're right. Yeah. But I don't know, having
I'm
had
just
near
teasing.
death. Yeah, I think my near death experience wasn't nearly as scary as getting up on stage.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that is that, you know, we talked about that like the public face versus, you know, what's
Well,
going on privately and just feeling exposed.
Well, you know, I had an experience a few months ago, and I thought I've got to get out in front of a group of people, strangers, where I don't know them. Like, I have no problem talking to any stranger, anytime, anywhere. And when we were talking about being happy, I realized I'm smiling today because I'm really happy to hear your story, to connect with you. And I just love people. That's kind of my thing.
Right.
But standing up on stage where I was delivering a speech that I figured I had it down, and I could tell the story. I started shaking so bad. It was like I couldn't stop myself from shaking. And I was like, wow, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
And so it was like such an innate, I think what was happening is I was literally feeling the energetic pulse of all the people, and it was just too much for my energy field to take in. But anyway, that's enough
Well,
about
I'll just say, years ago when I was at Bell Labs, we used to do these talks just to
that.
our group,
Uh-huh.
um, or our department. And so, but it was people who know you,
Yeah.
and they could see through the, you know, there's not a lot of hiding, you know, behind an illusion, right? So, you know, it was good practice. You get in front of a group and you talk, and it would be a technical talk, but it's still, you know, like you're unveiling yourself. And I was getting ready to do my talk, and one of my other buddies, who has much more experience, says, "Well, you know, I have my palms get sweaty and my heart's starting to beat, and maybe I feel a little beat of perspiration, that like the energy in my body, and you know, maybe you call it a nervousness or being afraid." He said, "Those are the symptoms for me of excitement." I say, "Excitement."
Wow.
And so I got up in front of the group and I said, "You know, I'm super excited to be here today." And it's funny because it's simply the label, like give dog a name kind of a thing. That label, shifting that label, changed the whole story I was telling myself internally about what was happening in the moment. And so that's like a powerful kind of, to me, that taught me a lesson about the power of the story that I tell myself.
Yeah.
And it comes back to like getting hold of people and, you know, and seeing if things will stand the light of day and being clear about what's going on inside of me and so forth. But also that label of excitement in public speaking it shifted things from a survival, I'm nervous, I'm scared, this is terrorizing, to possibility, like I'm excited, what can happen here today, how are these, how excited, how can I transform these people, that kind of thing. It's a mindset thing.
Well, and I've been noticing, so I challenged myself to come on to YouTube live weekdays, and I've been doing this a couple months, but what I noticed is automatically started with, I'm so excited to be here. And
Right.
so it is an excitement. It is just to answer what you basically just said. I've been doing that. And I am super excited, but it's sometimes tongue tying, and a challenge, but we're putting ourselves out there, right? And the point of it is I think, is standing in our belief systems, because we've changed so much of the process of self-development is challenging ourselves and stretching and stepping into a new environment that we don't really know how we can't control it. And so it's a continuous.
That's the experiment.
Yeah,
That's
it's
the
a big old
experiment.
party of let's see what happens.
Right.
And,
versus I've got to do it perfectly.
well, we got that.
Being a magna cum laude, for example,
Oh yeah, no,
is a cool thing and a burden, because it's like, wait, my self-image is that I do not make mistakes.
Yeah,
I get A's.
I had those, I call them perfect pictures, right?
Right.
And in corporate, and I was in sales, so I had to meet certain thresholds, right? And if you made that, then you have arrived, right? And
right.
You get a
and there's that whole kind of sales theory about posture, and which really is like back to smile because you're happy versus happy because you smile.
I remember years ago, Mary Kay, she coined that one, fake it till you make it. Yeah. So,
but that's back to that context of possibility and being responsible for it in a way also, not just in terms of the idea of causing someone to do something that you've determined that they should do, which would be one kind of idea about sales, which is like that arm lock kind of a thing. Or, it could be simply, hey, here's me, here's what's going on, here's an opportunity that I can put in front of you. And, I'll tell you a few things about what people have asked and how that goes. And it's up to you to choose, is that for you or not for you? Exactly. Are you going to pick that up or not?
No, when I was in the sales role, it was always, I'm here to educate you. I'm here to share with you something that may be of benefit to you and maybe not, right? Yeah. So tell us about what you have to offer. What type of programs do you have that are, anybody listening might be interested in?
Sure. Well, as I said, I teach a 6-week course called Super Focused Entrepreneur Action Plan. And then I have a high-level program. It's a one-on-one program that work with people longer term, and over time, that will probably evolve into a group program. But right now, those are the two offerings that I have. And I'm actually in the process. I mean, this is dating it, but right now I'm in the process of doing market research with folks about the next updating my course. And I do that periodically to keep in touch with the market. And then the course will start towards the end of July, this round of 2023. But, I know that some people will be listening to this like way down the line. My plan is to offer that course, say 3 times a year on an ongoing basis.
So how can people get a hold of you, Eric? I'm going to put the email down below, but is there a website that you'd like to direct people to? Sure.
If you go to, so my email and the website are similar. If you go to superfocusedentrepreneur.com, that's focused ED, then there's resources and things available. And over time that'll evolve. And I have an app counterpart to that should be out any day now.
Right.
And of course, you can reach my email is eric@superfocusedentrepreneur.com, ERIC. So
I love that. I love that URL, by the way. That's awesome.
Thanks.
You probably worked hard on getting that, right?
If I was lucky enough to find that one, yes.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it says exactly what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I basically decided I'm going to focus, that'll be my kind of branded identity. That makes sense, right? And so we're super focused on for like action plan and mentorship and all those sort of things fall out of that.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, great. It's been a whirlwind. We've gone down a lot of different rabbit holes, it seems,
Yes.
but it all comes back to being here right now, being present, being focused, and being clear on what it is that we want to create. Do you have anything to share, and final closing comments about maybe what you could leave with people for thought?
Sure. Let me just tell you a brief story. When I was a kid, I grew up in West Virginia, and we were out in the woods. So it was in the hills and valleys, and so there were creeks and all that. We used to build forts and dams and all that kind of stuff. It was awesome. But one of the things we needed to do was cross the creek, and the creek was too wide to be able to just jump over it. And so how you'd handle it is you'd kind of walk to the edge of the creek, and then you'd pick a direction, you'd start wandering down, and you'd look for where you could see rocks that would lead you across. And when you saw a spot like that, then the trick was not to just start running across, but you'd take a step and see if that rock was solid or not too slippery, and then take the next step and so forth. And sometimes you'd get part of the way across and realize you couldn't. You'd come back and you'd wander this up and down again to find another spot, and eventually you'd find your way across. But that's such a great analog to how to approach where you want to go, because the other side of the creek is like your North Star, and those stones are literally the stepping stones to get you there. But it's not like you just walk up to the creek and right in front of you is the first stepping stone in a series that's going to just take you right across. You got to work for it, to go wander and look for a place, a set of stepping stones you think are going to work. And sometimes you'll wander down that path for a little bit and find, whoop, that's not doing what I thought it would do. And you have to kind of go back and
Backtrack
again. But as time goes on, you keep getting nearer and nearer to your North Star. So you can kind of imagine a series of creeks in your life, right? So you get across one and you're to the next place and you're like, cool, this is awesome. Then you're like, well, I want to go over there. And, and it's sort of like it. So that's the ongoing process.
I love it. Wow, that is a great, great story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I am so grateful that you joined me today here in this space, that we could hopefully illuminate or encourage or incite somebody to taking action, making a better choice for themselves on their path.
Yep,
and
that's what turns me on. It gives me the tingles when somebody gets that.
Yeah. And we all need help. And I know myself, I've been resistant to help over the years. And the sooner that you get that support, the sooner you can make that shift. So thank you again. I truly appreciate you, Eric. And thanks for all the work you're doing in the world and contributing to helping people shine bright, as I say, shine, shine bright. Yeah. So thanks everybody for joining us here today.
I should say, by the way, thank you so much for just your being, like I said, it's a great space, and look how it drew me out. And thank you for providing this forum and this opportunity and you to be able to have this conversation. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. Well, you know what? I'm just playing because this is what I like to do, and have some fun and maybe inspire people along the way, right? To do some better.
Totally understand.
Something more better. Make the world more better. Yeah, so good. and so everybody, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, all right? Because YouTube, that's like positive vibes, and YouTube will share it with more people. And that's what Eric and I are here all about, is to help and inspire and encourage people, no matter where they're at, taking those incremental steps, those secure little steps on the pebbles crossing the creek, to getting and manifesting what you're here to create. Manifest what you want. That's what we all want. We just want what we want, right? Finding that clarity.
Be responsible and clear, and go for it.
All right. So thanks again, everybody. And I'll see you back here tomorrow, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Bye-bye.
Bye now.